Welcome back to Fade to Chat, Golden Age Cinema, the podcast where we revisit films from Hollywood's golden era and explore why they continue to resonate today. And we picked a fun one today. I'm Marty, and I'm joined by co-host Cindy Rotz. Together, we're going to explore films, performances, creative histories, and cultural contexts that shape classic cinema and still influence movies that we watch today. This influences a whole genre, the film that we picked. Today's episode, we're looking in the shadows, and we're going to be looking at one of the most influential film noir films, Double Indemnity, from 1944. I'll start out by saying it's nice to have movies that bring back smoking.
There was a lot of it.
There was a lot of smoking in this movie. And cigarettes, a lot of cigars. It was there wasn't a scene without some sort of smoking going on in the process. So that's kind of wild. What's your thoughts on it?
Oh gosh, that's funny, Marty. Well, of course, I hadn't seen this movie. I was anxious to watch it. And I think you had said to me, did it surprise me? And yes, it absolutely surprised me. It was not your typical murder movie, but I really enjoyed it. And I know we'll talk about a lot of the surprises, but yeah, it was a good one. I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah, it was released in 1944, and it was a Billy Wilder direction, writing, production. And it was Paramount Pictures. Screenplay was by Billy Wilder and Raymond Chandler. And apparently they fought like cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fighting was about, but I saw multiple reports in the media that they did not get along. And which was really kind of strange to hear. However, it's based on a novella by James M. Cain. And he felt, James M. Cain, when he finally saw the final script or the final production, he was like, you guys wrote in some really cool stuff I wished I would have put in the novella. So it's an interesting film. It's well written, obviously well directed, I think. But in 1944, it broke some barriers. And in terms of language in the film, more morality in the film, and there were some real challenges to it. But it created this whole dark and shadows sort of way of looking at crime and criminals and such. Yeah. Film stars Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck and also Edward G. Robinson. And a different role for Edward G. Robinson in the film. He was for years playing that heavy gangster type. Yeah, in this case, he's got a different feel for him. What did you think about Robinson's performance?
I thought he was excellent. Like you said, I was so used to seeing him as the bad guy, the gangster. We just watched him in Some Like It Hot. And, I was just so familiar with him in that respect. But in this one, he was the good guy. And he was the one that was, let's just say, morally right. Whereas Fred MacMurray was not. Yeah, he was always doing the right thing and always trying to do the right thing, which was a switch for him. And Fred MacMurray was the bad guy in this movie, and we were used to seeing him as the good guy. So their roles were really reversed.
Fred MacMurray, whereas Edwin G. Robinson had he was much more energized and optimistic, and his vocal tone went up and down. He added a lot of energy to the film. He was kind of the moral center of the film in terms
Mm-hmm.
of what he was attempting to do with these two people trying to defraud the insurance, well, commit murder and also defraud an insurance company. It was a different role for him. I'll tell you, I didn't care much for him in his gangster roles.
Mm.
And so this was kind of a nice break. I think the other movie that I appreciated his role, I don't know if you ever saw this film, but it was late in his career. I think it was the last film he did, was Soylent Green. And he plays Sal. Soylent Green is a futuristic movie. It has it was considered a great sci-fi film with a reveal at the end that I won't necessarily tell you about. It's kind of builds through the whole movie, but Saul was a friend of the main character in that film, and Saul wanted to preserve books. He had a real fascination with all these things of the past, which we would call our present right now. And he was aging and he kind of felt like the world was passing him by. So it was a really kind of stretch for him, again, outside of the bad guy role. These two films, this film and Soylent Green, I really can appreciate Edward G. Robinson's his acting chops in that.
Wasn't he
Did you have
offered
any?
Fred MacMurray's part originally?
Yeah. Oh, he was.
He was, yes, but he didn't want to play the bad guy again. And he was hoping, I read that by the end of the movie that Fred MacMurray would flip his lapel, so to speak, and reveal that he was actually um, with the police. I'm sorry, Siri's talking to me again. I don't know why. But he turned down that role because he didn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I also read that he got paid the same amount of money, even though he was billed, as a lesser character. He was in the third, third
Yeah. He
billing, but
was
he was
third.
paid the same.
Yeah. He was. There were other people that turned down the role for Fred
Hmm.
MacMurray's role. That included James Cagney. I can't see James Cagney in that role. Alan Ladd. Yeah, possibly. And Gregory Peck. Yeah, I could see
Mm.
Gregory Peck in that role. So yeah, it just worked out that Fred MacMurray came in very monotone. All his delivery, his language and delivery compared to Robinson's role, all his delivery was very, very monotone and very kind of hip sounding language, like, yeah, baby.
Yeah, I didn't care for that. And it was so fast.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I didn't care for that.
that's kind of Billy Wilder, I think, in a sense,
Hmm.
and the dialogue, and it's also Raymond Chandler. If you look at other interpretations of Raymond Chandler's films, dialogue is at least in the films that he's been interpreted is very important and very quick. So you look at things like The Big Sleep, you look at
Hmm.
films like and you've got that kind of quippy detective
Hmm.
conversation that's going on as part of it.
I'm sure you know this, that he made a cameo in the movie.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty. It was interesting because considering the ways in which he was treated or he complained about
Hmm. Yeah,
his
there he is.
complained about his working with Billy Wilder. I don't know if Billy Wilder kind of stuck him in as like a let's have Hitchcock show up in my film, as
Yeah,
Hitchcock did in all of his films. It was kind of just gratis for his work on it. There was no intended purpose. The guy's just sitting
hmm.
outside of the office of Edward G. Robinson as Fred MacMurray leaves it, and he's sitting there reading a magazine. He looks up as he passes
Hmm.
by, but there is no plot purpose. And
Right.
certainly from continuity standpoint, it doesn't need to be in there. We don't need to show him leaving an office. So it sort of feels like a gimme in terms of that process. So I don't know what else. Oh, we should probably talk a little bit about Barbara Stanwyck. And
Her wig?
the wig. Yeah.
The wig.
You know, I didn't, until I was reading up on this, I didn't realize first it was a wig, and
Marty.
secondly, the controversy around it.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay, so talk about the wig.
Oh, I think it's hideous. I know I talked about Doris Day's wig in the last movie, but this one was just, I'm sorry, I thought it was just awful. And I don't mean to be disparaging, but I just didn't find her to be that attractive as a
Yeah.
as the woman who's going to, attract Fred MacMurray to kill her husband. I mean, I just didn't get the sex appeal of her. She didn't come across that way to me. She's very cold and very kind of hard. And I know they did that on purpose, but as part of her character. But I didn't get the appeal of her
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. For me, the wig and the look feels a little bit more appropriate for like a 50s Bobby Sox person. I mean, she's got that kind of shape to the wig, the fact that it's a blonde wig that she has, and it just feels out of time, like it could have happened 10, 15 years after when this film actually was done, and it would have, that look might have fit in better. People hated it. And it's, as I said, it's an interesting look. And yeah, I didn't find her particularly wowza, like this is the person that would break up my marriage. It just there was nothing. But Fred MacMurray's like a wolf right from the beginning with her. He is right directly into hitting on her. It's like, oh, that leg bracelet. Oh, that leg bracelet. Yeah. Yeah. It's creepy. It is creepy.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
We should
the anklet
probably,
bracelet supposedly was a symbol that she was available.
really, that's what it was?
During that time. I mean, nowadays you see women with ankle bracelets on, but back then I guess it was less common, and it was a sign that I guess a woman would let other guys know that she was available. And it apparently just had her name inscribed on it, it just said Phyllis, but
Phyllis, yeah.
yeah, I didn't think it was that alluring. And even when he first saw her at the top of the stairs, she said she had been sunbathing and she had some sort of a towel or something across her. Again, I didn't see what the big deal was, but you're right. He just like honed in on her right away, like as soon as he saw her. I didn't get it.
And when you think about it we think about this movie in reverse. It's actually shot in reverse in a lot of ways. The first scene opens up and Fred MacMurray is in bad shape, and he goes up to an office and sits down and essentially records his confession to Keyes, Edward G. Robinson's role, who is kind of, he's the insurance fraud guy in the insurance company, and Fred MacMurray is a salesman. But when you think about this in reverse, she was trying to find someone that she could hook in, and with the insurance policy. And she kind of plays naive, and not to give any spoilers, but she's very active in bringing him into this, and uses her seduction to be able to get him to kind of bend, and he takes it up right away. He just
Yeah, he
laps it up
does.
right away.
Yeah, because she planned to have him meet her husband at the house originally, and then surprise, she said, "Oh no, could you meet me at a different time?" And her housekeeper just happens to be off that day.
Yeah,
Of course, she knew that, and she would cross and uncross her legs, and they kept showing the ankle bracelet, and she had on little frilly shoes. And she did, like you said, she asked a lot of questions about, well, could I do this with the accident policy, and how would that work? And she asked him how long had he been in the insurance company, and
yeah,
you seem to know a lot about it. So she was looking for someone to help her
yeah.
from
And
the
would
very
my husband
beginning
know? Is there a way we can do this policy without my
without
husband
him
knowing?
knowing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, she needed his help to pull it off, not
yeah.
just
We've got to
anybody.
talk. We've got to talk about another character who is probably, well, there are a couple more characters in this film, and Porter Hall. Porter Hall plays the role of and we've seen him before in Miracle on 34th Street. He was the psychiatrist.
Hmm.
And
Didn't catch that.
this movie I think occurred a few
Mhm.
years after that, or I've got to check. I think a few years after that. The guy twisting his
Oh
eyebrow,
my gosh,
the
I didn't
nervous,
realize that, Marty.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This movie occurred 3 years three years before Miracle on 34th Street.
Hmm.
Miracle on 34th Street was 1947. This was 1944. And so, yeah, he is the bumbling psychologist in Miracle on 34th Street, and
Hmm.
plays this role in this kind of a minor, but you're surprised. You think when you first see him on the train with Fred MacMurray trying to portray her husband, you think, oh, this is just a chance encounter. It's a bit role, but he keeps coming
Mm-hmm.
back because as the mystery, the murder is revealed or unraveled, he has a place in the story in terms of confirming that the person he saw on the train looked nothing like the husband who was dead, and tried to give a description. There are points in the process where he's asked a description, and then he interacts with Fred MacMurray's Neff is Fred MacMurray's character's name, interacts with Neff and kind of says, "Have we met before? Have you ever been to
Mm-hmm.
Oregon?" And he
Mm-hmm.
goes on and on about Oregon and how, and the dialogue between him and Keyes, Edward G. Robinson, is kind of like, "Well, I'm an Oregon man. I always speak what I mean." Blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and that. So yeah, he plays an interesting character in it. The other person that I guess would be the other role to speak of is what was it, Lola?
Yeah, Lola.
Yeah,
She
Lola.
seemed familiar to me. Yeah, the daughter.
Yeah, she plays the role of the daughter of um,
Dietrichson's first wife.
Dietrichson's first wife, and so
Mm-hmm.
when the first wife dies and is replaced by Barbara Stanwyck's
Mm-hmm.
person. Barbara Stanwyck was a nurse, and it was questionable how the first wife died. Stanwyck
That's
marries into
suspicious.
this money, and really, Lola's not having anything to do with. We find out that she really does not care for her stepmother at all in the
No,
process.
no. But
Uh,
she's instrumental in finding out who really killed her father because she didn't believe it was an accident. And she went to the insurance investigator and said, I don't think he fell from the train.
Yeah, she's rather upset
Hmm.
with her father's death, and also seeing Barbara Stanwyck, dressing up in a black hat, trying to make
Hmm.
sure she looks even before his passing. So
Before
she
Black
suspects
Hat
that
in the Blue.
that Barbara Stanwyck is maybe doing the same thing she did with her mother, and is
She
rather
said she had
upset
that
with that.
same look on her face, the same look in her eyes 2 days before her mother passed. And she had that same look in her eyes again before her father was killed. So she had some suspicions.
Yeah, Jean Heather, who plays Lola, previous, she doesn't have a lot of credits,
Hmm.
but she was in Going My Way and When Hearts Were Young, and she played a dancer's role in Holiday Inn,
Hmm.
but and it was uncredited. So she doesn't have an extensive history. And I don't know what she did after that. It might have been out of movies. The only thing I can see was in 1947, which kind of stops her film career, or at least
Hmm.
slows it down. Uh, she was in another film in 1949, but in 1947, she was in a severe car accident and she was
Hmm.
thrown from the car
Oh.
and injured as a result of that car accident. And that's where kind of acting stops,
Hmm.
or at least
Okay.
the stuff that's recorded in IMDb. Well, lots of people leave IMDb and they go to Broadway or they go to the theater.
Hmm.
But in terms of film or television appearances, her stops around 1949.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you want to talk about all the famous locations in this movie?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, Barbara Stanwyck's house, it's kind of that Spanish style house that was very popular in California. And I wanted to know if that was a real house or if it was location. And I looked it up. It's a real house. It still stands today in Hollywood in the hills. And it's 6301 Quebec Drive. You probably looked it up as well. Looks
I
just,
didn't.
oh, you didn't? You didn't look that up? Oh my gosh. It looks the same. The one thing I thought was kind of unusual when they were leaving the house, she and her husband, and he was getting ready to get on the train. And of course, Fred MacMurray's hiding in the back of the car waiting to kill him. She opens the garage door. The garage door slid from one side to the other.
Huh.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that would work there because they had two garage doors. And she left the garage door open even after they left the house. She never went back and closed the garage door. But that house is still there in the Hollywood Hills.
Oh, wow.
And I remember him saying when he pulled up to it to go in and talk with her about the insurance, he said it probably cost about $30,000, which I'm sure was a huge amount of money back then.
I I just noticed some things during the film. Um, One of them that really bothered me because I recognized the tune in the final confrontation when he comes to her house
Hmm.
and speaks about there's a radio on in the background. And he's like, "Can you turn that down?" And I'm recognizing the tune. And I did some searching and to try and find out what was the music that was being played on the radio, and apparently it was the radio next door
Hmm.
that was being played, and it was Johnny Mercer tune. So that would have been kind of, I think, early in his career, Tangerine. And I'm not going to attempt to sing it here, but you can go on the internet and listen to versions of Tangerine by Johnny Mercer, and you'll go, yeah. And it was an instrumental version. It wasn't anybody singing. But I'm not even going to try and sound out the notes for you.
I
But
didn't notice that.
little things like that bugged me. And it was like,
He made a point of saying, turn the music down.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, it's outside. It's next door.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't catch that. The lighting was very interesting in that last scene, too. Yeah, it was so dark, of course. It was, 11 o'clock at night or something, but those Venetian blinds that she had in her home. And I went back and looked it up, and of course it said about how it kind of foreshadows like prison stripes, that type of thing. And I thought it was just my imagination. The first time I saw it, I thought, am I seeing stripes? Because it was very like gray and black tones. But I thought I had seen those stripes, and I thought, I think I'm making this up. But then I read that no, that was an actual thing, that they were trying to give that impression of the prison stripes.
So I kind of want to. I want to talk about this one scene because it's been replicated through lots of things before. Before we get off of it, though, I agree with you. The lighting was so dark in there. And she goes around and turns off the lights. I also thought at that point, the goldfish in the round bowl became rather symbolic. It's like they're trapped in that bowl. They can't get out. Yeah. But she goes around and turns off the lights. And to me, that made no sense. It's sort of like if you're planning on shooting somebody, don't do it in the dark,
Yeah.
And, but the scene I kind of want to talk about is the store scene.
Okay.
Where this has been replicated in other movies. She's got dark sunglasses on. They're kind of wandering around. They meet there to be able to have a conversation about what's going on with the investigation or the potential investigation. And I was just aware that it's shot in a way, and actually I found some stills of the whole set, so like pulled back where you can see how the lighting is set up and everything like that. In terms of that particular scene. I'm going to ask you a question. I'll put you on the spot here. Have you ever seen the Steve Martin movie Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid?
No.
Okay. Concept of the film is written by Carl Reiner. It's got Steve Martin in it, and I forget who the femme fatale is in that. But what they do is they string together a whole story in a film noir version where Steve Martin plays the detective, the protagonist. But the scene where they take out sections of old movies, and they replace Steve Martin in the other role. So, like Steve Martin has a conversation with a drunk Humphrey Bogart, and Steve Martin, has a conversation. He's on the other end of the phone with other scenarios. So, if you like film noir and you like films of these times, it's funny, and it also does a lot of connection to this film because there are a couple of scenes in here where Steve Martin appears in a blonde wig. And
in this movie?
Not in Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid. No, in Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid. So he jumps into the Barbara Stanwyck role. And you see a shot from the back where he's kind of looking up and smiling with the blonde wig on. And Fred MacMurray, or who you think is Fred MacMurray, is embracing him. And,
Okay.
and ask like, what's that perfume that you have? And the
Yeah.
punchline is better, but Reiner juxtapositioned the characters and put them into actually the storyline of some of these films,
Oh,
and then
okay.
strung them
Okay.
together into a whole
Oh, oh.
storyline. So I went back to look for that particular scene or those particular scenes and see if I could get a clip to send you so you could see it, because you'd get
Mm-hmm.
a good laugh out of it. But it's Steve Martin in a Barbara Stanwyck wig, dressed up and like Barbara
I can.
Stanwyck.
Yeah.
And then, there are all these other great films too. So you'll watch it and you go, he was put in what? Now, what is this film he was put in? I want to go back and find
Yeah.
it out. And they tell you at the end of Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid, all the films that they took clips out of and how they used them.
Mm.
So it's pretty cool. But the store scene was one of the things that they did in Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid. And also when they first meet and embrace up and they're talking over each other's shoulders, they go back, forth
Mm-hmm.
in the shots, and they interpose Steve Martin in that role. So if you haven't seen that, and if our listeners haven't seen that, and you like film noir,
Yeah, check that
it
out.
would be a fun one to watch.
I was paying more attention to silly things like the rows of cans of food and how much it cost, 10 cents and 15 cents. That was during the time of food rationing. And didn't they say they had police or someone stationed in the store because they were afraid that people would, steal during that time because food was so scarce?
Yeah, and I found a still shot which made absolutely no sense until you told me what you just told me, of four police officers on the set of the store
Mm-hmm.
shot, obviously between takes, and
Right.
they are standing there, and Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck are smiling at them across the
Mm-hmm.
counter. So now that picture makes sense to me, that
Okay.
they, and you'll see one of the things I noticed in this film was the recognition of the wartime era, the
Mm-hmm.
rationing tickets, the people who are, purchasing things. You'll see that represented pretty clearly in this film. So they didn't
Mm-hmm.
shy away from that or pretend it wasn't there. And part of it, I think, was Billy Wilder, Raymond Chandler's kind of acknowledgement of what's going on now politically when this film is going on.
Mm-hmm.
That you've got people who are greedy, trying to beat the system or cheat the
Mm-hmm.
system, and while you still have people who are making sacrifices for the war effort and such. So there's a little bit of politics in there too.
Mm. And they always were meeting. The one time they met in the baby food aisle, which would be a strange choice for
Yeah.
them to be meeting. And that woman that comes by with her little boy asks Fred MacMurray to reach up top to get a can of baby food of some kind. And I'm just going to say, just like in the other movie, she looked way too old to be having a small child. But I always think people during that time, they always look older. They just
Yeah.
look older. But I thought, well, she doesn't look like she should have a child that age. But again, I thought, what are they doing in the baby food aisle? And I thought it was kind of suspicious that she kept her sunglasses on.
Yeah. Well, she wanted to avoid being recognized, being
Mm-hmm.
connected to the person who she is eventually going to pin the murder on, or try to get the murder
Yeah,
pinned on.
that's true.
So yeah.
Yeah.
This whole story was based on a real 1927 murder.
Yes, I looked that up.
Now I want to
Mm-hmm.
go back and
Mm-hmm.
research this, but it involved Ruth Snyder and Judd Gray.
Mm-hmm.
The crime centered around an insurance policy with a double indemnity clause. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were eventually executed for their crime,
oh, okay.
both of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a corset salesman. That's what that's what I read. Yeah, he was a corset salesman.
um, There were some other things about the production. Billy Wilder filmed an alternative ending. I thought the ending was good, but then the question is, walking out of the movie theater, is whatever happened to that character? Did he face trial? Did he die and was not able to make it to the hospital in time? Then justice not really being served. So the way it ended. Well, first of all, I think it was a powerful piece between him and Keyes, between Neff and
Their
Keyes,
relationship.
as they're dying, and you see the exchange of the matches and the lighting each other's cigarettes or cigars, and you see that relationship play out. And Keyes defended him for such a long time in front of the company, and then had to stop defending him when I think he got the phone call from the doorman that said, "Hey, this guy came in, he's not doing too well. Maybe you want to get down here." And then got down there and listened to his confession, or enough of it to realize what was going on.
Well, and he had dripped some blood on his way up to the office. Yeah, there were some blood trails. Yeah, and he kept saying to Keyes, he said, "Well, you were too close. You were trying to figure it out. You were on the right track, but you were too close to the situation. Basically, I was right across the desk from you, and you just couldn't see it because you were too close." Which is true.
The Billy Wilder apparently filmed an alternate ending, which would have showed Walter Neff in a gas chamber, but cut that scene. And I think it was a wise decision to do that. I think it would be too much of a morality play and the final shot, he's in the gas chamber. It's much better to kind of leave that question without a visual for people to figure out what happened.
Yeah. Because you're right. They heard the siren. We heard the sirens in the distance. And you weren't sure, was it the police? Was it an ambulance? Was it both? And he thought he was going to try to run for the border, and he didn't want Keyes to stop him. And he said, "You'll never make it as far as the elevator." He said, "Well, I'm going to try." And he made it as far as the doors, and then he collapsed. So my impression was that he died right there.
Yeah.
That's my impression.
When she shot him, I couldn't tell exactly where she shot him. Because
was it the arm
it was up here, but there was no blood. It almost looked like he put his finger in his jacket and you could see his finger through the bullet hole, but there is no blood involved. And the opening credits where it's a shadow of a man on crutches walking towards you and getting close enough till the credits end. You can't see because it's only a shadow, identifiable who it is. I thought, well, you get shot in the leg, and then I had to realize, no, that is him trying to portray the husband that he just killed.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. And it was very strange for me to figure out the shooting until the scene where Keyes shows up and you see his jacket is all red with blood. So, yeah.
Were you familiar with that type of match? That self-striking match?
Yeah.
I had to look. I didn't know any. I kept thinking, how in the world is he lighting that match all the time? I had to look that up. I thought that was an interesting thing for that time period, that they were self-striking matches.
Yeah, strike anywhere.
Light it under his fingernail.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I was a kid. I was a boy kid, so I know everything about matches. And I was a Boy Scout, so I knew everything about matches. The thing that didn't make sense to me was Robinson said, "No, I never." He said, "You know those when you buy a cigar, you can get matches for free," and he said, "No, I never do that because they ignite in my pocket." And I'm like,
pocket.
"What?"
Yeah. Yeah, he
I just
never
didn't get
carried
that.
matches because they'd explode in his pocket.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that either.
Yeah, I just never got that.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting. But I was never a
So,
smoker. No one in my dad smoked, but he smoked a pipe. But I thought, how do you light a match without striking it against a matchbook or having a lighter? So that was new to me. That was
you know,
interesting.
if you're really cool and you have a really rough beard, which means you're ultra masculine, you can, and you don't shave it, it's got nubbies on it, you can light it off the side of your cheek, which,
And set your face on fire.
well, no, you'd hurt yourself.
No.
I mean, there'd be some discomfort, but you're a macho guy, so you don't mind
Oh
that kind
my
of facial
God.
discomfort.
Oh
Yeah,
my
there have been
God.
some, I've seen that done before, or at least in movies done before, but yeah,
Okay. I think I've seen it on a shoe,
yeah.
like on the sole of a shoe. I've seen that, but just in their bare hand, yeah.
I tell you, if we get together for Macstock in the summer, I'm going
You'll
to bring a
show me.
box of Strike Anywhere matches, and
Okay. You do that. You do that.
yeah, they'll love us lighting matches in the hotel.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Oh,
I did. About halfway through the film, it was like, man, there's a lot of smoking in this movie, and it was
oh, there
like,
was everywhere.
yeah, it's like you
He
can't.
smoked. He smoked everywhere in the apartment, in his office, in the supermarket. Oh, that was a real location too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Jerry's. That was a real
yeah.
location, and his apartment was a real location also.
It's just it's because I haven't seen films where there's if there were films from that period, there wasn't a lot of that I've seen. There wasn't a lot of smoking going on.
Hmm.
If there were films after the 70s or 80s, they started banning or reducing the amount of smoking that could occur in movies. And so to constantly have it was kind of a reminder that there was a
Hmm.
time where people could do that anywhere. Like
Hmm.
I'm old enough to know there were times on airplanes that you could, and it wasn't like there was a smoking section. There
Okay.
were, they had the ashtrays built right into the thing. And if you wanted to light up, you lit up on
Oh,
an airplane.
oh.
So yeah, it
The
was
other thing was
how
the
it's,
drinking. The
yeah,
drinking during the day.
yeah, yeah,
Drinking at lunch. He stopped at that drive-in and got a beer. He wanted to have, what did he want to have in his iced tea? A little bit of rum, he said, or something to punch it up. And then he stopped at the bowling alley on his way.
yeah,
It's like it was a much looser time
yeah.
in that respect, too. A lot of drinking.
Do you have, I'm going to see if I have any more stills. I mean, I have stills of Fred MacMurray on the, well, I'll run through some of them just and try and keep it well described. So he a still of him where Barbara Stanwyck is being seen saying goodbye to her quote husband as he gets on the train, and then him in the observation part of the train where he runs into the character actor
Hmm.
who kind of later identifies him, and then another still of him hopping off the train and Barbara Stanwyck and him placing the husband's body on the tracks to make it look that way. And then finally, not Neff, excuse me, Key starts to get
Yes.
aware of what's going on and comes up to his apartment just at the same time that she is trying to come up to his apartment. So a shot here of her hiding behind the door. And then
And
finally, the final confrontation in the very, very dark room, very, very dark
yeah,
scene
there's the
with it.
stripes.
And
Can
then
you go
her,
back to the one? Can you go
yeah,
back, Marty, to the one where she's hiding behind the door?
yeah, sure.
Because if you think about it, and again, I read about this, they had to switch the way that door would open to hide her because
Oh,
normally
yeah.
your door does not open out into the hallway, it opens in. And that's how they were able to show her hiding behind the door because it normally would have been the opposite way. So they switched it for that.
Well, also plotline, she could not have been in the apartment when Keyes comes to the apartment. So there, unless he's
Right,
putting her in another room or something like that.
right, right.
So the timing, it kind of adds to the suspense of that. So yeah,
Hmm.
this minor character, the kind of, I don't know, bad guy boyfriend of Lola,
Oh, yeah. What was his name? He was an Italian name.
Nino,
Nino. Yeah, he was
Nino
not a good
Zacchetti.
guy either. He
Yeah,
treated her terribly.
yeah. And there is that shot, which I had in the video portion here, still of Fred MacMurray. It has already been wounded, and he
Hmm.
sees Nino coming up, probably to be set up for the murder in
Hmm.
some way. And he stops him and says, "Go ahead and call her." And what you have up there with the mother or mother-in-law or stepmom is nothing when you've got this good-hearted person who loves you, Lola, and call her, turn around and call her, and
Hmm.
he does. He walks away. So there's a little bit of redemption when he realizes that everything has fallen through for him. It's like it doesn't have to fall through for other people
Hmm.
who are innocent in
Yeah,
this film.
you're
I
right.
didn't really care
And
for
he,
Nino. Seemed like kind of a
no,
nasty guy,
yeah,
but she loved him. So
yeah. And you're right. He protected him because otherwise he would have found the body. And then that would have been a whole other story in itself.
right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
final scene. We talked about it a little bit. Really, I think pretty powerful and a great conclusion to the film, where Keyes is talking with Fred MacMurray as right after his confession and his attempt to flee. He collapses in the doorway of
Hmm.
the building. Not didn't make it to the elevators,
Right.
and just there's so much of that dialogue between the two of them that is heavily reliant on the relationship and the dialogue that occurred previous in the film. So there's
Hmm.
some switching where you hear things that came out of Fred MacMurray's mouth, Neff's mouth, being said by Keyes, Edward G. Robinson's. So it's really, I think, quite well written and quite creative
Yeah.
with that
You
final
could
role.
see the closeness between the two of them.
Yeah,
And it wasn't just a boss employer kind of situation. In fact, um, was it Fred MacMurray had said to him earlier, he said, I love you earlier when he was
right.
in his office at one point. And then at the end of the movie, Edward G. Robinson says, that he loves him.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you're right. There was no need for the gas chamber. There was no need for any further explanation of what happens.
yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
anything left on your list of notes and things that you'd like to share before we close out?
Mm, Well, when I first watched it and I saw, the beginning with Fred MacMurray dictating to his boss, and, basically it was his confession to the murder, I thought, oh, okay, I know what happens. And I was kind of like, I was kind of annoyed at the very beginning. I thought, well, shoot, I already know what's going to happen in the movie. But of course, there's so much more to it. I
Yeah,
thought
it's
the plot was much more involved. Yes, you know that someone has been murdered and you know that he did it, but the way that it was done, and I liked the fact that he narrated the movie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
thought that gave a more personal touch. I like that part of it.
yeah, it's not it's not who did it, it's how he did it.
How?
And so
Yeah.
it's to me it's kind of reminiscent of Columbo's, those shows where
Mm,
the murder is done in the first 20 minutes, but you want to
yeah.
watch the whole thing to find out how it's put up
Well,
and how it's found out.
Well, there's a current show on TV that I'm kind of stuck on called Elsbeth.
Uh,
I don't know if you've seen that or not, but there's always, yeah, we know in the beginning who did it and how it happened, and then she has to go back and figure it out.
yeah.
So, yeah. I'm glad I watched it. I thought, here we go. And again, another murder. Seemed to be on that track a little bit, but this was definitely a different one. And yeah, there were parts of it I didn't care for. Like I said, Barbara Stanwyck, she's not my favorite, but I thought she was very good in this role. And there for a while, I thought she really did care about him. And I think
Mhm.
there was just one little bit at the end when she shot him and he didn't die right away. And he came closer. He said, do you want to shoot me again?
Right.
And she said, I couldn't do it. So I thought there was just one little moment where maybe she did care about him,
Yeah.
but still
Yeah.
her intent was to use him
Yeah. She was
to kill her
conflicted
husband. Yeah, she was conflicted.
because she saw him as bright and supportive
Yeah,
and attentive, which her
yeah,
husband wasn't. So that I find that was I was aware of that. She had a complex role, but there could have been more nuance in it. I think in some ways
hmm,
with her. Have you seen Christmas in Connecticut?
yes.
Okay, so that's our Christmas movie for next year since we did
Okay.
Miracle on 34th Street because she's a completely
Okay.
different person. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's not murders going on in Christmas in Connecticut, but she's much more appealing as a character in that.
Hmm.
If you didn't care for her in this movie,
Yeah.
that would be my
And it's
next go-to for her.
okay. And it's interesting. I was kind of binge watching some movies this past week because I had some free time on my hand, and I'm a big fan of Betty Davis. And I'm always used to seeing her in like Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. She usually plays kind of the bad person again. So I just watched a movie with Betty Davis this weekend when she plays a nanny for a couple who are not getting along well. It's Charles Boyer. And
Hmm.
she is a totally different person in this movie. She's the most loving, most kind, wonderful person to these children. She's a nanny. It's called, I think, All That in Heaven Too.
Huh.
And there's a murder in that movie as well. But she's a completely different character. And I've enjoyed watching movies where I'm surprised, where I think I know what the actor, actress, I'm so used to them in a certain role, and then I see them in something completely different. And then I watched one where she was in a mental institution and was really treated terribly by her mother, and she ended up going to a mental institution for a while, and she was and they called her an ugly duckling. And when she came out, she again was a totally different person and fell in
Huh.
love with this man she met on a cruise ship or something. But it's just interesting because you kind of get locked into seeing these actors actresses in a certain role, and then to see them completely flipped. So I enjoy that because it changes your whole point of view sometimes, just like Fred MacMurray.
Um, I've got another piece I just want to mention if
Sure.
you don't know this. Edward G. Robinson uh, had a lot of trouble during the Red Scare. And there's a movie that we mentioned before on here, Trumbo. And in Trumbo, Edward G. Robinson is kind of portrayed as someone who sold out because he needed to kind of keep his work. And he sold out some other actors and writers. And
Mm.
he's not portrayed in the best light in that film. Um, and so after that time, he was kind of reduced to doing film noir And, you know, that's why we see him show, well, at some point we see him show up in Soylent Green. I've got an article here from Civil Liberties History from 1952, May 1st, where Robinson reported today publicly confessed to the House Un-American Activities Committee that his association with about his association with communists in the 40s.
Oh,
Robinson's confession on April 30th was a arranged event designed to clear his name regarding accusations of pro-communist activity. Robinson's name had come up in December of 1950. He denied that he had been a member of the Communist Party. And, you know, in Trumbo, he's portrayed as someone who kind of says, and he's played by a character actor that does a brilliant job of it. And I like that character actor. If you see that film, you'll see that you go, oh, that guy. And he shows up in a lot of movies now as a major character actor. And he portrayed Edward G. Robinson in it. And he explains it as like, I had the risk of losing a bunch of work if I didn't deny this. And so he was rather trapped in that. But apparently this article says is kind of asking for forgiveness to kind of get his name back in the play in terms of work and such. So yeah, I'll put the link in for the article for folks who want to take a look at it. But I connected with Edward G. Robinson and a little bit of his history based on that other film, that there was a time he was not liked because of his unwillingness to stand up against what was going on politically with the Red Scare.
I have just one more little trivia. We've touched on so many, but this was something I read that they didn't even notice till there were 4 scenes in, and they realized this. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to go back and reshoot 4 different scenes." But Fred MacMurray had a wedding band on during the entire movie.
Yeah, I now I want to go back and look at the stills that I put up to see if I can find
Yeah,
any of those
yeah.
scenes. The ones that I have that I'm looking at right now is
Because when he
just
first
two.
kisses Phyllis, I guess that was the first time it was seen. But yeah, he had his wedding band on the entire time of the movie, and we had talked about that in Miracle on 34th Street too. How she had
Yeah,
some jewelry on, even though she was divorced. But this was very obvious,
yeah. I
and
don't
it
have any
wasn't
stills that
noticed.
show
Okay.
that show it in his hand. Otherwise, I'd put that up for folks. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you one question about this film. How would you e- encourage someone who's never seen this movie to see this movie?
Well, I think because it is a twist. Like I said in the beginning, you
Hmm.
know what's going to happen, but you don't know how and you don't know when, and you just know that there's going to be a murder. So it kind of intrigues you into like, okay, now how, why, how, where, when. So you want to find out all those things.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's not a, I've said this before, it's not a gruesome movie. They really don't show the actual killing. In fact, when Fred MacMurray is in the back of the car and she's driving him her husband to the train station, they have that, they're driving down this dark street, and the signal was 3 honks on the horn, and she does that, and you don't see him actually being killed, and you don't see Fred MacMurray. You don't even really know how he did it. You
yeah,
just the camera's focused on her face and kind of her reaction, and it's very like she doesn't even really react that strongly. I didn't think. She just keeps on driving. So you don't really see the murder. You don't you don't get the gory parts of it. And I don't, just like in the end, they didn't have to show him in a gas chamber, so there's a lot left up to your imagination, which is the part I like. I don't like movies where everything is blood and guts and gore because I think this is a much more effective way of showing it. I imagine that he was strangled. I don't know what you thought. I figured Fred MacMurray came from the back and somehow strangled him, and that's how he
Yeah.
died. Because they didn't even say, they just said he fell off the train. They
Yeah.
never said
I think
anything
they
other
said he
than
broke
that.
his neck. I think Keith
Broke his
said he
neck.
broke his
Yeah,
neck.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This film faced a lot of resistance from the production code, the Hays Code.
Mm.
And so they had to, not showing a murder is one way
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
reducing that challenge. But the issue really was adultery and murder,
Mm-hmm.
created all sorts of code issues for them. And I was looking to see that code, the Hays Code in particular, ran from 34 to 68. And 1948 Paramount decision weakening studio control. In the 50s, the code breakdown with TV in 68 replaced by ratings. So they were kind of fighting that through the whole process, and I think that scene is a much better way to show it, but also
Mm-hmm.
reduces some of the stuff that we see that's pretty direct. I think if I was going to convince somebody to look at this film who's never seen it, it's like, don't be afraid that this is a film from 1944.
Mm-hmm.
This film, or 1941, no, 44, excuse me. This film really, there's a lot of it that's ageless with it. It's not only the style in which it was shot, but there's nothing that's going to say to you watching the film, oh, this couldn't happen today.
True.
And so
That's
I think
true.
for younger viewers, people or younger listeners or people who are, my kids' age, they're going to go, well, I don't want to go watch a film that has all sorts of things in it that aren't active today or aren't possible today. This film defies that in terms of being timeless. So I would put
True.
that
That's
piece in it.
true.
Well, we have made some decisions about upcoming films.
Yes.
I'm suggesting a film, although I suggested this one, I'm suggesting next week's also, and then you've got the week after that, or the episode after that. I am going to suggest next, we need a palate cleanser. And I hate to go back to, I don't hate to go back to Cary Grant, but this is turning into the
No, you
Cary
don't
Grant
hate to go back to Cary Grant.
podcast. But eventually we're going to run out of Cary Grant films to watch.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at one that I can consider an Irene Dunne film.
Mm-hmm.
This is The Awful Truth. It was done in 1937 with Cary Grant. A married couple files for an amicable divorce, but find letting go of each other is harder than they originally thought. And Irene Dunne is remarkable in her comedic talent in this, and I think even Cary Grant commented she was one of the best comedians that he worked with. She wasn't known for that. She started out as a legit kind of attempting to get into opera singing, and you see some of the
Mm.
singing in this movie. And then she did some Broadway stuff, and then moved to movies. And she did a film before this film that people got critics' attention, and then she got mixed with Cary Grant for this film, and it's directed by Leo McCarey, who has did a lot of comedic films in the time. It is The Awful Truth from 1937, and we're going to talk about that with our next episode. And then coming up, we're going to go back to murder.
Yeah. Good.
We're going to do Dial M for murder. We're going to hit a Hitchcock and
Okay.
another Hitchcock, I guess, because we did Gaslight. Thanks for listening to Fade to Chat, Golden Age Cinema. Thanks to Cindy for being part of this ride with me. We keep finding fun things to talk about and great movies to look at. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe. You can leave a review if you like. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@fade-to-chat. And you can also join us on, if you want to listen to the audio version of this, you can find us on any of your pod catching services and listen to the audio piece. We have some stuff that's on the video. Not only do you get to see our smiling faces, but you get to see some still shots from the movie. We'd love to hear from you. Send your thoughts or film suggestions to the podtalknetwork@gmail.com. That's our email address. Subscribing won't cost you anything. It just is a kind of way of saying, hey, we're here to support the project that you're doing. And we're commercial free, so you don't have to worry about that. And that won't get in the way of you enjoying what we're talking about. You can find out all the other projects that I'm involved with on thepodtalk.net. That's the website that will get you to the other podcasts that I'm involved in. Join us next time as we continue to explore Hollywood's golden era, one unforgettable classic at a time, right here on Fade to Chat.